In 2014, a group of scientists ran an experiment that was supposed to be boring. They took ordinary people, led them into a plain, empty room, and asked them to do just one thing: nothing. No phone, no book, no music, no company. Just sit there, alone, with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. There was only one catch. In the room was a button, and pressing that button would deliver a real, painful electric shock. The same shock these people had felt earlier in the day and described as so unpleasant that they said they would pay money never to feel it again. So those were the options. 15 quiet minutes alone with your thoughts, or pain. You can probably guess what happened. 67% of the men chose the shock. Some pressed the button again and again. One man shocked himself 190 times in 15 minutes. They didn't do it out of curiosity. They did it because being alone with their own mind, with nothing to do, was unbearable. Welcome to the strange, surprisingly dangerous, and secretly powerful science of boredom. Here's the thing about boredom. Everyone has felt it. The slow, heavy crawl of time in a waiting room. The restless itch halfway through a class you didn't choose. That sense of being trapped inside a moment that simply refuses to end. We treat it like it's nothing, a minor annoyance, an empty gap to be filled. But to a scientist, boredom is one of the most fascinating things the human mind can produce. Because boredom is not the absence of feeling. It's the presence of a very specific, very uncomfortable one. Psychologists define it like this. Boredom is the unpleasant state of wanting to be engaged in something and not being able to. You're not tired. You're not sad. You have energy, attention, a whole brain revved up and ready to go, and absolutely nowhere to point it. It's like flooring the gas pedal in a car that's stuck in neutral. All that power going nowhere, and that awful feeling it produces. It isn't a glitch. Your brain built it on purpose. To understand why, you have to understand just how desperately your brain wants to escape it. Remember the people who shocked themselves? They weren't strange or broken. In study after study, boredom turns out to be one of the most powerful motivators we have, and not always for good. People who are easily bored take bigger risks. They're more likely to gamble, more likely to eat when they're not even hungry, more likely to reach for a drink, a cigarette, a screen, anything at all to make the feeling stop. Soldiers have described the boredom of war as harder to survive than the fear. Prisoners in solitary confinement describe boredom as a kind of torture, and they are not exaggerating. Because to your brain, deep, inescapable boredom isn't nothing. It's an alarm, a signal going off, screaming that something is wrong, that you are pouring the one resource you can never earn back, your time, your attention, your actual life, into absolutely nothing. And when that alarm gets loud enough, people will do almost anything to shut it off, even press the button. So why would evolution hand us something so miserable? Why build an entire emotion whose only job is to make us suffer when nothing is happening? Because for almost all of human history, nothing happening was a problem. Picture one of your ancestors, 50,000 years ago. Same cave, same food, same walk to the same watering hole, day after day after day. Now imagine that ancestor felt perfectly fine doing nothing, content to sit still forever. They never explore the valley over the hill. They never try the strange new plant, never follow the river to richer hunting grounds, never wonder what's on the other side of the mountain. They just stay. Boredom is the thing that wouldn't let them. It's the voice that says, "This isn't enough. There has to be more. Go and find it." The restless ones, the ones who couldn't sit still, who craved novelty, who were tortured by sameness. Those were the ones who explored, who moved, who survived. We are not descended from the humans who were comfortable being bored. We are descended from the ones who couldn't stand it. And this is where boredom does something that looks almost like magic. When you're truly bored, with nothing pulling at your attention, your brain doesn't switch off. It switches inward. Neuroscientists even have a name for what comes alive in those empty moments: the default mode network. It's a web of brain regions that fires up when you're doing nothing in particular. And it happens to be the very same system behind imagination, memory, daydreaming, picturing the future, replaying the past, inventing things that don't exist yet. In other words, the exact moment you feel the least productive may be the moment your brain becomes the most creative. And this isn't just a nice idea. In one experiment, researchers gave people the most mind-numbing task they could think of, copying numbers out of a phone book, and then asked them to come up with creative new ideas. The bored group didn't just do okay. They crushed it. They were far more inventive than people who were never bored at all. Boredom, it turns out, is the soil that ideas grow in. Think about where your best thoughts actually show up. Not when you're busy, not when you're scrolling. They come in the shower, on a long walk, staring out the window of a moving train, in the quiet, boring, in-between moments. Some researchers take this even further. They argue that boredom didn't just spark the occasional good idea. It helped build civilization itself. Art, music, stories, religion, invention. So much of it born from restless minds that had a little too much time, a little too much energy, and went looking for something more. Which brings us to a problem your ancestors never had to face. For 50,000 years, boredom did its job because boredom was almost impossible to escape. You couldn't pull a glowing rectangle out of your pocket the instant the feeling appeared. But you can. We all can. We have built a world where boredom is now optional, where the very first flicker of that restless itch can be erased in a second by an endless feed of other people's lives. And without quite meaning to, we've started running an experiment on ourselves that no human has ever run before. We are erasing boredom completely. Here's the trouble. If boredom really is the soil that ideas grow in, what happens when we pave over the soil? If your best thoughts come from empty moments, what happens when there are no empty moments left? That quiet engine of creativity and reflection needs stillness to switch on, and we almost never give it any. So here's something to sit with. The next time that old familiar restlessness creeps in, standing in line, waiting for a friend, lying awake at night, and your hand drifts automatically toward your phone, try not reaching for it, just for a minute. Let yourself be bored. It might just be the most useful thing you do all day. Your brain has been waiting 50,000 years for the chance. So what do you think? Is boredom a problem we should finally solve, or a gift we're quietly throwing away? Tell me down in the comments. And if you made it all the way here without once checking your phone, congratulations. You might be more human than you thought.